Hello, once again. I'm your host, Doc Rotten, and this is Horror News Radio, the official Gruesome Magazine podcast. Back with me again this week are the scariest, goriest, bloodiest co-hosts on the net, and tonight we're reviewing The Deep House, streaming now on Hulu. Let me introduce the crew, starting off with Dave Dreher, lead news writer at Gruesome Magazine. Easy for me to say. How you doing, Dave?
Wheeze nude lighter.
That's exactly what I said.
Okay. Works for me, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm good. How's everybody?
I was doing well for a bit. Now I don't know. Also joining, not so much. Also joining us tonight is award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Moore. How you doing, sir?
Is Wheeze new lighter? Is that like the Buzz Lightyear general value, great value version? Or?
It is. Yeah, but he wheezes. He doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Okay, just making sure. That sounds like a name someone would put in like a sci-fi script. By the way, but,
does it?
Yeah.
Newsletter.
Wheeze newsletter.
Wheeze newsletter.
All right, we're going to call you that. We're going to make you a shirt now. All right, let's welcome special guest host, film committee member of the New York City Horror Film Festival, the one and only Brian W. Smith. How you doing, sir?
Hello, gentlemen. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, we love having you here. Thank you for joining us.
The Deep House.
Are you ready for this? We're going to do the Deep House, yes. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to start off giving our first impressions. That will be spoiler-free. And then we're going to get into a discussion. When we do that, we will dive into that, no pun intended, spoilers and other things. And then I know, it's a sad world. We'll also wrap things up, with our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5. And our favorite scene. And let's get this train wreck rolling, shall we? We hope you enjoy not only this review, but many others that we have on the site. Please, if you want to help us out and get me the much needed medical help I need, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, and give us some comments down below. Let's hit the CAD, shall we? The Deep House, Hulu, streaming on Hulu beginning February 3rd, 2022. Synopsis is a young and modern couple who go to France to explore an underwater house and share their findings on social media undergoes a serious change of plans when the couple enters the interior of a strange house located at the bottom of a lake, and their presence awakens a dark spirit that haunts the house. Yes, it's an underwater haunted house movie. Yay! Written and directed by Alexander Bustillo and Julian Murray, along with Rachel Parker on the script. Cast includes Camille Rowe, James Jagger, Eric Savin, Alexis Cervez, Anne Classens, and Carolina Massey. I'm sure I butchered a few of those names, and I apologize. But let's get going. It's the thing. Let's find out what our first impressions were. Brian, you start us off. What was your first impression of The Deep House?
First impression, I mean, I'd heard about it and I'd seen early trailers and there was a lot of buzz about, the concept and the trailer's pretty cool. The first impression was it had an original setting, location. I think it's probably is it really like the first underwater haunted house movie? Literally, I guess that's what it seemed like. So I was on board for it, but yeah, I don't know if the execution overall necessarily won me over. I didn't necessarily think it stuck the landing very well. There was a lot of exposition among the characters, but yeah, it was an interesting premise, but I don't think I'll watch it again.
I guess we should also say it's found footage too, right? So,
ish.
Yeah, ish.
That we can get into, that we can get into sort of the workarounds that they probably had a list that they were working on when they were developing the story. It's like, oh, we need diegetic music, we got to have a way to explain it, and how do we have the characters talk to each other and all that sort of stuff. They sort of worked out, and I was like, okay, we'll go with it. But I was also yelling out and wrote in my notes, conserve your oxygen, stop talking.
I know.
let the atmosphere build. And it just didn't quite happen. They were sort of explaining everything we were seeing, because we have eyes and we saw what was going on. They didn't have to explain. But yeah, it's I don't know if that was a studio note or not, but yeah, that was my impression of it.
It's accurate. Dave Dreher, what was your first impression of The Deep House?
Well, I hate to disagree for my first time recording with Mr. Smith there, but I actually enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I although the premise is stupid, an underwater house was like, what? the hell are you talking about? And the fact that they went into this house and things like chairs and stuff were, just kind of floating in midair. It's kind of weird. Wouldn't everything just be stuck on the ceiling? I would think. If it was
I have
floating.
no idea.
So a lot of it doesn't make sense, but I really bought into the atmosphere. I love the whole thing. I know we can't get too spoilery yet, but I thought there was some seriously creepy shit in this movie. It kind of creeped me out. So that might just be the fat guy being underwater for that long. It's just not going to work out well for me no matter what I do. So, but again, I thought some of the visuals were great, and there was one jump scare. I hate when I fall victim to the jump scare, and it's been since The Haunting of Hill House, since I had a good jump scare, and this one gave me a good jump scare. So it's a big win.
Nice.
And unlike Brian, I thought the ending was perfect on this. I loved it. I always love a good. Well, again, I don't want to give the ending away, but it had a
very 70s ending.
It had a very mist-like ending, which I actually enjoyed quite a bit. I was glad that they weren't afraid to go there.
Yeah,
so go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I just want to ask you, was it the fish? Did the fish get you?
Yes, the fish got me. Yes, the fish got me. And that pissed me off. I was like, God damn you fucking fish. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I really liked it. Right now, this early in the year, it's by far one of the better ones I've seen so far.
Nice. I like that. Christopher G. Moore, sir. What was your first impression of the Deep House?
Would this be called a drowned footage movie?
You coined that one. That's
put that on the Blu-ray. I mean, the concept of it is so kind of original. Although this felt more. I want this as a video game more than a movie.
Oh my God!
It felt like more like a video game. And I know Brian, you play a lot of video games. I don't know if you felt that watching this, but it felt a little bit. There's like games like BioShock that involve like being underwater and stuff. So it had those elements that felt a little bit like that. But I think for me, I mean, I really liked the whole time as a filmmaker. I'm like, how did they create these sets underwater, and how did they do this? Because the production design is really cool for an underwater setting, and I think that when you can sort of take the haunted house movie and put it in a totally different setting that's never been set, I like that aspect of it. Now, granted, as much as James Jagger is the son of Mick Jagger and Jerry Hall, he that character annoyed me, and I was like, why is this girl with him? Because he's just an asshole, and he keeps treating her. I don't understand why she's with him, because she keeps treating him like, getting into her boundaries and doing things to irritate her, and I just don't understand why this girl is with him, and so. And as the movie progresses, I just got more irritated with him. I was like, you just need to rip his hose out and leave.
Yes,
because he was just like so annoying, and he's the only reason they're probably everything that the shit hits the underwater fan is because of his decisions. But I don't know, it seemed kind of interesting, but then like, and it falls into that level of exposition towards the end where it's just like, this is why all this happened and blah blah blah. Oh, and this connects to this, and I was like, that's what it felt. That's why it felt like more of a video game, like how video games will explain, like, oh, this is the house that because of this person, and this is why this happened, blah blah blah. But I do agree with Dave. It did have some creepy moments. It's different to see sort of like ghostly figures when they're in the water and they're like creeping and they keep like disappearing and stuff. I like that aspect of it, but then after a while, I don't know. I kind of agree with Brian with the dialogue stuff. Some of the dialogue, I would, for me, just exploring the house was fun for me. Just like when they send that little drone out and they'd go in different rooms and it's like, how they're trying to escape. I think, but also I think this film falls prey to the logistics of where they are and the geography during scenes, because there's all this like stuff whipping around in the water and things moving a lot. You kind of lose, okay, where are they at? And I know a lot of that has to do with just the mentally and supernatural stuff, but they did it so much that I kind of wish it had more. I know you can't do a lot of really cool shots underwater like you would in Haunting in Hill House, but I kind of wish that they kind of walked that line. But they did that with like using the drone and stuff. So I don't know. I think visually and production wise is really cool, but I think by the end of it, it kind of got waterlogged by some of the exposition
bad way to put it.
of dialogue with characters and stuff. But I enjoyed it. I mean, for me, just if you just turn the sound off and just watch it, it's amazing, because some of those, I mean, I was like, ooh, first of all, I worry about drowning. And then I worry about being like stuck in someplace. So, I mean, it's very anxiety inducing, and I think it's very interesting. But then I also thought it was going to be some bigger thing involving. Well, I'm not going to say my thing, but I just thought it was going to be something bigger, because when they look at a World War II monument earlier, I thought that was
a hint of where it was going to go. Yeah.
But then maybe I'm just thinking of like some of, again, video games like what Wolfenstein or something. I thought it was going to go that route, and it didn't. But that's just has more to do with my expectations and how the thing. But yeah, I enjoyed it for the visuals and the concept. I think were brilliant. I just think that it really didn't deliver as much on the other elements.
Yeah. I'm a lot more in Dave's camp. I really enjoyed this. I like the idea of them going and finding. They didn't just discover it. Somebody told them it was there and told them how to find it, going down, there's steps underwater leading to it. So it's just all kinds of really interesting concepts here. And it, the idea that they can like swim through the house, I don't know, it just was fascinating. And, the weird things they find and then getting trapped in it. But so it isn't really that scary for the first hour, but then there's something that happens in one of the rooms that's really kind of got me a little bit. If you've seen the trailer, you might know what we're talking about. But once that happens, it was kind of like bonkers, and it could have used a little more of that and less exposition, I guess. Because but there's people. We only have 2 people, and they still make all the mistakes of a dozen people, right? The stupid decisions that a dozen people would have made.
If you ever, I don't care where you're at, in an underwater house, where you're at, if you ever come to a life-size crucified Christ on the door, do not open the door.
Right.
Period.
I was thinking the same thing.
Life size, not finding a little trinket.
I know.
Although with a purpose.
Although I had a moment where I thought, is this going to be Evil Dead underwater? Because there was like a recorder.
I know. Wouldn't have been awesome?
I was like, ooh, are they going to play the tape underwater? And then I was getting chills. I was like, ooh, this is going to be like, evil, watery dead or something. But it didn't go. I don't know. My as a filmmaker, I'm always thinking, ooh, I wish they'd went this direction. But yeah, I mean, things like that. I was like, and then like, yeah, if you see some kind of like satanic symbol and there's dead bodies chained above it, get the fuck out of there, please.
Eventually they do. Let's be fair. Eventually they do. But it's too late by then, and the is somehow bricked up. So we're keeping spoilers, by the way. So.
Yeah, we are. But
at this point, so just so you know. But it's
but there's a reason you have a life-size Jesus on a crucifix. Almost like this thing locking mechanism. You put like a normal 2x4.
Right.
There's a reason you lock somebody out of the cellar.
And there were still scratches on the front door, and they knew that. And it was like, you guys.
Well, it's the 2 stupid white people in the house movie.
Especially earlier in the movie when they first get down there, they find the mausoleum, and she's like, "No, don't go inside. It's bad luck." Yeah, don't go inside the mausoleum, but go ahead and move the giant Christ.
I know.
It's like, oh, good Lord.
And then you just keep going past it. It's like, put it back. Just put it back.
Well, with
All right.
yeah, there's a
Right.
part where they're being chased, and I was like, maybe
back.
you
Yeah.
should lock them back in there.
Pick
How
up the
about
giant
that?
crucifix and lock them back in. Yes.
I did like, okay, so the part that really got me is when, these two people that they find chained up wake up, right? And they take the little masky things off and they wake up. And that for me was really effective. The whole visual of it, the whole idea of it. And, the way they wouldn't swim, but they would kind of glide and
kind of bop or kind of
which
float in at you.
Yeah. And when they were
It was
at the
creepy.
door and they were trying to shut the door, do you guys remember what is it?
Inferno.
Well, that would work, but I was going back a little bit further. Not
Shockwaves.
Shockwaves, yes.
Yeah.
It feels kind of like those guys.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Those were Nazi zombies.
Nazi zombies.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was all about this. I love the found footage aspect of it. It took its own liberties, but at the same time, I dug it. The big drone was a big part of them getting away with a lot of stuff, and their little underwater watch gizmos.
Underwater soundtrack, basically.
Yeah.
I was like,
It was
okay.
awesome.
But by the end, there was actual score. I was like, okay, so we've thrown the found footage thing out.
But they do that a lot in found footage films. But
Well,
yeah.
I don't know how much, if these filmmakers were even like, if they were influenced by video games, but the movie felt like that, because even when the drone would switch to a red light, it almost felt like Silent Hill-ish, where you'd have those two worlds that would switch between.
Yeah.
And there's just elements of it that, I think worked. I mean, turning a drone into something that's creepy. I think they did a great job with, certain parts of it in regards to the creepiness of certain situations and stuff, to where it's like, even I was like, ooh, like, well, first of all, if you're underwater and I went to underwater house, I think hiding under bed is probably
That's
gonna be
the
the best
dumbest
place.
thing
I'm
ever.
like,
Oh my
why
God.
is this idiot hiding under a bed? You're underwater
With the light on.
Yeah, you had your light on. I mean,
Come on, though. It looked cool, though.
It did. The
it
feet
looked
walking
cool,
past.
but
was-
I was like,
Yeah.
if there's a person roaming around an underwater house, I
Right.
pretty
it
much
did.
to goner. So I don't know.
Weren't
I
there
don't know.
candles lit at the end too? Like there were a lot of things that
the
No,
electricity came on.
okay.
electricity started flaring up. Yeah,
Okay.
which looked really creepy. I thought that looked fantastic too.
Yeah.
Well, you
It
had
just
also had the projector. playing,
Projector.
too,
Yeah,
which I don't know how that
It doesn't work
Yeah,
if it's
underwater.
fine, because
Uh,
we're talking
it-
about
'cause
ghosts walking
ghosts.
around on those.
ghosts. Yeah, ghosts.
You kind
That's-
of have a license, right? At some point.
I guess. I just feel like as a writer, I would be ripped apart by that if I tried something like that. But whatever. Blumhouse.
Yeah.
I was, when it was by the time it was done, I was like, I would put this on one of those like DVD value packs with like you got the deep house. I'd put it with the open house. What was it 37 meters down or 27 meters down?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
what was that recent shark movie, Great White? I would put them all on one pack. It was like, yeah, pretty much all the same movie to me.
Did
That's
Blue,
the same experience.
did Blumhouse help finance this, or did they buy it after the fact?
I think they might have. I think it was like distributed after.
Because I kept thinking that the chair floating just looked too much like their opening.
yeah, it really did look like their logo.
wow.
Doesn't
I
it?
didn't think about that.
Yeah, it looked like their logo. No, it really did. Yeah,
So I was thinking.
I thought the
that
same thing. I'm like,
Okay.
all right, now they're just putting their logo in the movie.
I'm glad I was not the only one that thought that. Because if it was not intentional, it feels very intentional. At least
So
for me,
is,
it did.
is Blumhouse involved with this?
Yeah,
Yeah, their thing came at the beginning. I'm
Yeah.
surprised
But
you
but
didn't know that, Doc.
it's a French film, isn't it?
Yeah.
I believe
Because
that's
it's-
what I thought it was going to be. Yeah,
yeah,
I wondered.
because
And
Epix
with
is a distributor, so it must be a partnership with
I
Epix.
see. With the extra added exposition, I started wondering if I really did wonder if that were like studio notes, if there was much more of a quieter movie that ended up getting bought and then sort of maybe tweaked after the fact. I don't know. I just felt like there was a lot of extra dialogue that didn't need to be there. Because what was sold initially from the trailer that I remember just seemed like this visual, interesting, thriller. But I don't know.
Well, I think also something that I think because we're relying so much on their voices and you can't really see their expression because their mouth
Everything's
hidden.
covered, yeah.
it
Mhm.
kind of took away the the power of their emotion, and,
Right.
and almost, and so then I couldn't even see by their eyes if they were emoting, and so then it just felt like all the dialogue was, even though you'd hear it through microphone stuff, it felt dubbed, like it wasn't in the moment. And I think kind of sucked me out of just some of the emotional moments between the two, and then it just became more about physicality than it came about seeing what's in their face. And I think that was, to me, that was a kind of limitation for it as well.
Yeah, they didn't play up the countdown with their oxygen well enough either, because I think we saw it at 80%, and then suddenly it was at 2% or something like that. It's like, that should have been more of a presence, because that ticking time bomb effect of it would have brought some tension, because, or at least it would for me, because I'd be going, oh my God, I'm running out of air. I would feel that. So,
Right.
but you're speaking of the mask and everything, the film Underwater from a year or so back, they managed to get around that really well. I don't know if you remember that it felt like you were inside the mask with them at times.
Yeah.
Underwater, I think, is does that whole scenario a whole lot better when it comes to being in like horrific scenarios and reacting to it. Yeah, I think, although a lot of times those things are much more non-realistic scuba mask, because that was shot dry for wet, I think, in Underwater.
Was it?
Yeah, there's a lot of it was shot dry for wet.
Okay.
So this, yeah, I think they had the limitations, I guess, of just having. The whole time I was thinking about the logistics of it, because I didn't realize. I guess they weren't that far down. I didn't realize you could just take your mask off and then stick it back on so freely.
But at one point in the movie, they make a mention about having enough oxygen to go up slowly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens. I mean, there's two things that could have happened. I wasn't really sure whether she convulsed or she just ran out, because I kind of
it looked to me like she was just drowning. I mean, like the bends wouldn't go that way. She was out of oxygen. She didn't have nothing left.
Right. And they made a point. At least they made a point of that earlier, because she says she can do 3, but she only did a minute and a half.
Yeah, a minute and a half. So, liar.
Yeah. So don't lie. Don't lie when it comes to how long.
Although I don't know. I don't mind a nice 70s ending every once in a while, but I was really hoping that.
I feel like
was going to end differently.
I feel like that's all we're getting. So I think I'm overloaded on 70s endings at this point.
Maybe, that's true. I mean, I guess I'm more of a.
I mean, I don't mind them when they've earned it, but I think in my notes, like the first 30 minutes, I was like, I hate this guy, Ben.
Oh yeah, he's an asshole.
And it was just like, yeah, it was playing into all the tropes that I've already. It was like, okay, if she gets away and he dies, that's basically the trope I was expecting. So I wasn't expecting her to die too. I thought it was pretty messed up, but I was like, by the end, I was like, eh.
Well, I think that's the problem. I mean, like she falls into that sort of like that normal trope that female characters have been in for many years, and so I thought it's one of those things where maybe she gets that level of independence to sort of like, I'm gonna go do this and get out. And I think I always hate it when like people have to work so hard to get to a certain level and they're just like, it was all for naught. So why did you even try? And that just irritated me. And the ending irritated me so bad. I was like,
yeah.
Well, let's take a quick moment to recognize Eric Savin as a very creepy Pierre, who really was very creepy looking at Tina so longingly. But at least we found out why. Right?
Well, and I almost feel like if she had escaped, I think he would have done something really creepy to her. So
maybe just drop her ass back down there.
She died.
Well, to be honest, I was expecting something. I was expecting a 70s ending, but more along those lines, that she escapes and then Pierre does her end.
And he shows up and like, I thought he was going to show up in like a motorboat and stuff and hit her with a paddle or something. But yeah, it'd be like the reverse of like the Friday 13th.
Wouldn't that be great? That would have been a great ending. So, oh well, it's a thing. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. There's plenty. Only one person gets to choose the fish. Brian, you start us off. Let us have it.
I get this. I think I'll give it a 2.
A 2?
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
And that's just for the style and the visuals and the setting and the effort. As far as story and characters, it didn't work for me in a lot of ways. It just sort of, after a while, it sort of literally sort of droned on. And my favorite scene, I would say, would be well, I guess it was obviously when the dead couple, sort of chased them down the hall. But I think the more visceral scene was when she started getting sort of sucked down into the hooks and the chains. That was the
Mm.
closest thing to like maybe the descent of that sort of, helpless, trapped feeling. And by that point in the movie, I was like, the way it was so relentless, I was like, oh, maybe she's not going to make it. That was the thought in the back of my mind. I was like, oh, maybe she won't make it, and it will be a brutal death or something down there. But it felt very Hellraiser-ish, if Hellraiser were underwater.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, yeah, it's a good
there was
point.
still like 30 minutes left in that scene, in that sequence. So I figured, okay,
Was there?
yeah. But yeah, that's yeah. Well, yeah, two. I'd say it two. It's because it left me kind of dry.
Oh, bing, and you're the winner. All right, thank you, sir. Dave, you're up next. Your final thoughts, your score, favorite scene.
I'm gonna go the opposite way. I'm giving this a 4. I
Nice.
actually liked it quite a bit. Again, it certainly has its plot holes, and a lot of it is completely ridiculous. But at the same time, I thought it was incredibly creepy, very claustrophobic. I just, I was into this movie. I just was. It is shot really, really well. Um, I don't want to go too much into things because I want people to see it. We already revealed the fish. Now everyone's going to be looking for the fish. But my favorite scene really has not much to do with anything, but it was the first shot. When I seen it, I thought, "Ooh, these guys know what they're doing. This is something special." And that's when they get to that mausoleum, and there's just a really cool shot where she says, "Don't go in," and he kind of puts his arms out and like floats up above it, and the way it's lit from the top, and the camera's like pulling down, and he's rising up, and it just looked amazing. It was creepy and beautiful, and just about everything you could want out of a single shot. It was really cool, and that just stuck with me through the whole movie.
Yeah.
Have I answered everything I need to answer?
You did, sir. Very well.
Give it a score. I'm done. That's it. I like it. Watch it. It's fun.
Very good. Christopher D. Moore, you're up next. Your final thoughts, your score, favorite scene.
Yeah, that moment when he floated up imitating Christ, I was like, this is
He's
bad
a dick.
karma happening
He's a
right
dick.
here. You're asking for it, buddy.
But it looked good.
Oh, it did look good. I think that if for anything, I think this film visually looks really good, except for the moments where it just overuses the crazy camera stuff because they're underwater and when things are attacking you or whatever, you can't really see. So you kind of lose your cognizance of like, where am I in this room or where I'm, but yeah, visually, I think once they go underwater and they find the underwater house, I was kind of astounded. I was like, did they film any of this on a set? Where did they film this? Because I was like, as the first of the drowned footage type films, I'm not sure Asylum's going to be making anything like this anytime soon, because it seems like a lot of work to pull this off. But I think I don't know. I think if anything, this would work better as a video game, I think, than it would as a movie. But I still enjoyed it just for the visuals. I mean, I was like, there was moments I was like very tense watching them go through different rooms and stuff. So yeah, I think the problem just comes down to just some of the characters and the dialogue and how this kind of, because they're just, that boyfriend character is so annoying. I was like, ugh.
They might have oversold that. They might have pushed that a little too far.
I think they did, because he just kept doing it over and over, and I'm like, is there some kind of trauma this girl's gone through that she's like putting up with this stuff? So I felt like there should have been some flashback to, to something. I don't know. It just kind of and I feel like there's certain reveals and certain connections they made by the end just felt like kind of shoehorned. Like, ooh, I just find this painting and this explains this, and it's like, oh really? It felt very video gamey. That works in a video game because you're not but in this it just felt like too on the nose. But I think the visuals kind of won me over, so I definitely won't give it as low a score as Brian did, but I will I will give it, I mean, I think because the look of it, I don't think there's any other films that could really pull off some of the look of this, because it really takes a lot of effort to sort of create the sets and do all the stuff. So I will give it, I'll give it a 3.25. I
nice.
I think the visuals kind of really sell it, and seeing stuff from the point of view of them and stuff. I mean, that definitely works well as the drowned footage trademark.
Drowned footage
Type films, and so I think that works really well. And I think I mean, this is a perfect movie they should definitely make a video game based on, because I would play that. I'd play that video game.
Nice.
Because that would scare me. And then you just have a fish pop out every 5 seconds to scare the shit out of you.
Big ass
Although
catfish.
the first fish didn't really scare me. There's a later fish that kind of like made me jump. But as for favorite scene, there's a scene where the chandelier, the light flickers on and off.
Yes.
And then the guy keeps appearing in different places.
Yeah.
And I actually caught myself able to cover stuff. I was like, oh shit. They can't get away, because he's like teleporting. It's like when ghosts, I mean, it's bad enough you can barely move underwater, but you got a fucking teleporting water ghost. You better say your prayers and hope you go to heaven.
You're screwed.
I mean, yeah, this isn't like some haunted house where you can just go. I mean, yeah, there's just so many issues with that I had problems with, because I hate like being in closed spaces. I hate feeling like I'm going to drown. So all that stuff, I like, I need to take a Xanax by the end of it. So, but yeah, I think that scene is definitely the one that stood out, because that was the scene that kind of creeped me out, watching it.
Yeah, so I'm in Dave's camp. I really love this. I'm a sucker for this. I love found footage. I love shark films. So this is underwater. There's not a shark, but there's a ghost pretending to be a shark. So I really had a good time with it. The whole idea of the house, like after the scene, Dave, that you chose, and then they kind of pan over to the right, and then you see the house and and what felt like the distance, but it was just right there, right? But it just looks so majestic and beautiful underwater, and it was like, oh my god, is okay. And they find one window at the very top that they can open and get in. And
yeah, they can't get in at first. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I liked it. I liked where it went. I never really felt the exposition you guys were talking about until you guys said it. Now, once you said it, I'm looking back going, oh yeah, I guess they did. But I was into it. I was sucked into it. So I didn't even notice it went right over my head. This delivered what I wanted out of it when knowing the Deep House, it's an underwater haunted house film. And that's what I got. I got that. And it did well. And of course, it has some things you question, like, really? The bricks were there, you got through, and now what? Okay, whatever. It's a haunted house. And then there are, things. But when it really starts working, like the kitchen scene with the Jesus on the wall, and then what's behind it, and down in there, it gets really, really creepy. And so I'm going to give it 3.75. How's that? I think that's what I want to do. I would watch this again. I would watch this again. And I will say that I'm going to name 2 scenes as my favorite scenes. Because they're both similar. One of them, Christopher, is when he's hiding under the bed, which is ridiculous. But just when she's walking past, and the way that it feels, right? It just feels so alien, because she's underwater, so she's kind of floating, but she's kind of walking at the same time, so it feels so different, and it just really creeped me out, especially when it just stood there, right? And it's like, oh no get the hell out of there, go fly now you can swim, go. And but the scene I really liked even more is when they were coming down the hallway and they were trying to get the door shut, and they were just kind of like, right? And then they were at the door trying to get it, and they just had this frozen look on their face. And I was just like, that's the creepiest fucking thing I've ever seen. So I don't know. Guilty.
It worked. I liked it.
I'm a sucker.
Yeah, it definitely had some creepy visuals and moments. I'm looking down at my notes, and not a fan of Ben as a character was my
No.
literally my first note.
Well, I think that's well. Here's the thing. In the very beginning, I was like, his a character annoyed me, but I was like, and then when they started going into the house, like, oh, this is so cool. This is so amazing. This is
Right.
probably gonna be my favorite film of the year. But then as it went on, his character just wore me down. I was like, come on, just shut the fuck up. And
I think that's that's probably where the exposition really stood out, because it was just him sort of, I don't know if it was like gaslighting or just like being really annoying to her. And I was just like, save your energy, just stop talking, stuff, save your oxygen. He was just being really, he was doing that thing that happens in a lot of movies where characters are just like mean to each other and just like, why are they, like you said, why are they together? I don't understand. I don't understand the dynamics. Yeah.
Because I think it would have been more, the tension would have been more palpable if he was more concerned about the oxygen, even though they were still exploring, and he had, because he had a goal, but then this was, so it didn't play on the conflict because he was ignoring the part that would have made it a conflict.
Right.
And,
just be a human person in a situation, that we can relate to. But I just, as I was watching, especially at the end when it just faded to black, I just pictured, the old days of being in the theater in New York in the 80s and 90s, and just hearing that solitary boo. That's I felt it in the back of my mind.
What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. Like I get flashbacks to seeing the devil inside in the theater, and I'm just like, yeah.
Oh no! Stop! No. Okay.
All right. This is how many movies we got now with this kind of little subgenre of YouTubers gone wrong. We've had at least 2 or 3 now.
Yeah, at least, if not a few more. Yeah.
Well, it's the. I guess it's the easy way to make it a found footage, because there's people that actually do that. There's people that do these things, and they go. I mean, there's even TikTok accounts that are all about exploring, cemeteries and seeing creepy stuff like that. I just saw one where I saw a TikTok where they caught those little ghost hunter things where they see like the stick figures. And they think, that's a ghost, and the ghost was slapping his ass, and saying "slut" in the little ghost box. And so, I mean, so I guess it's so easy because we see this stuff on all these social media platforms, so that it seems to be an easy thing. Although that one was it Found? What was the one that was the guy went in the hotel that we reviewed that one time?
Oh yeah, that one, the one with the vampires, or
it wasn't vampires, but it was almost like almost like the girl on the. I can't remember, but anyway, I gave it a high rating because I really like that film. Yeah. So I think you can do it well in certain ways, and I think. Oh,
I know what you're talking about later. That I was going back too far.
Yes, yeah, I think it's called Found or something.
Was that the one in Russia where you had the? Oh, I don't think we need to talk about
that. Anyway, yeah. So it just seems like that's the new thing where everybody's on the bandwagon,
Well, and everybody's looking for a new twist on the found footage. So that's an easy apple.
Well, I don't think we'll see a drowned footage renaissance, because that seems like the most complicated thing to make on an indie budget.
Well, they did it. They did it with the shark films, the 27 meters down, both of them. The second one was in caves, so that one had.
Well, I guess the film Wreck one, they supposedly shot it on the green screen, so maybe just shoot it underwater.
Don't do that. Yeah, don't do that. All right, well, let's get out. Leave your comments down below what you think of the Deep House, and if you want to see more drowned footage films, TM Christopher G. Moore. $1. Brian, thank you for joining us. We're glad to have you here. We hope to see you again soon. Dave, Christopher, as always, thank you for joining me.
Oh, of course, Doc. It's not like you give us a choice.
That's true.
It's always fun. No, go hold your breath in the tub for 2 minutes.
Yes. Good. Yeah. Just try. All right, guys, let's say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.